Hi there, I'm Nancy from Black Sheep Knitting. This is our weekly podcast. I guess we can call ourselves a podcast, though some might argue that it's not really a podcast.
91.
This is our 91st episode. Oh my gosh. I hope everybody has had a wonderful holiday. We still have New Year's to come, and I hope everyone has a great New Year's and find time to celebrate a little bit, even if it's early in the evening. Some of us don't like to stay up till midnight, but I think that's okay. You celebrate the new year. I'm looking forward to hearing people's resolutions. Mine is to, of course, stop eating quite so much so I can lose some weight for a wedding that I have 2 weddings to go to, one of which is one of my kids. So that's one resolution, and one is to learn something new. And I think I was going to try rug hooking because I saw a wonderful episode of Fruity Knitting with this amazing woman who does rug hooking up in Nova Scotia. And now I'm blanking on her name, but if you watch the latest episode of Fruity Knitting, you'll see her, and her things are exquisite. But I decided not to do that. I think I'm going to try my hand at needlepoint. And I've done some in the past, and I thought maybe I'll take it up again. We'll see. Anyway, today I have a What's in the Box episode, or to show you a box that I've already opened, but I thought you might like to see what we have. So we got an order from Spin Cycle of Dyed in the Wool and Dream State. So this colorway is called Castaway. We've had that in the past, so we have more of that. We have a new colorway, I think. I don't think we've had this before. This one is called Sugar High. And I like this because I'm really into oranges lately, so there's a beautiful orange color in here, and gray and pale yellow. There's actually even some pink. Though I have to say about Spin Cycle, when you put it together, in one of Andrea Mallory's patterns, any color works. I haven't seen one that didn't work. Or even somebody came in yesterday, came into the shop with her night shift, the big shawl of hers, and she had done it in Malabrigo Rios. It was stunning, really beautiful. So we have that color, and we also have, and I want to make sure this is Dream State. This is her worsted weight, and this colorway is called Absolute Zero. You've seen it in Dyed in the Wool, and it's dark burgundy, and what else is in there? There's some pink and gray. It's a really pretty one, and there's some great patterns out there for the Dream State. And this is Dyed in the Wool again, and this is called the Family Jewels. We've had that before. Very pretty. That might be fun with this and this. So here you go. Here are 3 that I think look great together, and they look great to do the shift, which is Andrea Mallory's over the head cowl, and it uses the 3 colorways, 3 skeins on a size 5 needle. And I think if you took these colors out of here, you might say, I don't think they would go, but I think together, they're gorgeous. And let's see, I think I have one more in here. This is Dream State as well, in Midsummer, which is a really fun pale pink. So those are, there are tons of patterns out there for Spin Cycle. It's a lot of fun to use. We've used it in all kinds of things. If you remember, we did it in the Alpenglow sweater. Andrea Mallory has a hat. She has several patterns that use small amounts and large amounts. So it's a great yarn to use. And what I think none of us paid any attention to, But the spin cycle is actually a superwash, the dyed in the wool, excuse me. I don't think the dream state is, but I can't talk today. The dyed in the wool is a superwash. But remember, with superwash yarn, it's okay to wash it in the washer, and I would do it in cold water on gentle cycle, but I wouldn't put it in the dryer. I just think it's a bad thing to do with hand knitted garments. I think they get beat up, thrown around, and what can happen too is that things that you've woven in, they can get loose. So I wouldn't do it if you don't have to. And I've seen things that are superwash that do, you put them in, wash them in the washer on gentle cycle and they're fine. Then you put them in the dryer and they do shrink a little bit. Another thing about washing, we had this, someone came in with a yarn that one of the colorways in the yarn, and it was not even in the, it was the same color as another skein that she had, but she put it in the wash and the one skein ran a little bit. So I mentioned this before, and we might try to sell them in the shop. There's something called a color catcher, and you can get it in the laundry where all the laundry detergents are. Comes in a box like Bounce or something, and I would put that in the water with anything that I washed. And I would even, if you're doing something with a white, color work with a white, I might try to wash it by hand with a color sheet, and so that you can, if it does start to ooze some color, and it does happen. I think either a skein didn't rinse well, and this happens from the big manufacturers too. Don't think it's just from hand-dyed yarn. It isn't. So I would be careful, that's all I can say, and buy the color catchers. So the next thing I thought I would talk about, we talked about cashmere a few weeks ago, and I thought maybe you'd be interested in learning about merino sheep. Now, there are many, many breeds of sheep, and merino is a very popular one because it's incredibly soft and nice to work with. It has a decent staple length, which means it's the little fibers, and it takes dye very easily. And merino sheep, you may have seen, there was a sheep called Shrek, a merino, who had escaped his field or was off somewhere, and they couldn't get him to be shorn. And the sheep's hair, fleece, keeps growing and growing and growing, and some people think it's cruel to shear them, but in fact you have to. And what happened to prevent disease, they can get sick. What happened to Shrek is his grew and grew and grew, and you can look him up because his picture is very funny. And his fleece, when they took it off, weighed 60 pounds. So that's how much it had grown in those years. And the sheep can get something called fly strike in their hind end. So they do need to get shorn around there because that's very dangerous to them. And I won't go into the details. But merinos were developed in Spain in like the 1200s, so they've been around for a long time. They're raised all over the world, but mostly about 50% of the merinos are in Australia. So it's a big sheep producing place. And the thing that people like about merino wool is the fleece is very dense, and they have more hair follicles, I guess, per square inch than other, or square meter, whatever, however they measure them, than most other sheep. And they even raise some of them to be, their skin to be more wrinkly, so if you ever looked at them, you can see they kind of have folds. So they can get more fleece off the sheep, which is a good thing. Merino apparently felts very easily. So if you get a non-superwash merino, be careful how you handle it. Don't agitate it when you wash it, because it will felt very quickly. And most merinos are white, I think, so it's easy to dye. the yarn. So I thought I would show you just a couple that we have in the shop, but these actually are from Malabrigo and they happen to be superwash. So these are not probably going to felt, though I would again, this is the Malabrigo Rios, which is a worsted weight that we love, and it's soft and bouncy and lovely. And another one that we have here is the Micha. This is a chunky weight, and this one is also a superwash. This is a single ply, which means that when it's spun, it just has one ply. This one is probably a 2-ply. I'm not sure. It looks like it. And if you look at them closely, you can see that they're plied. I don't know if you can see that up close. And this one up close. But you have to be careful when you wash these yarns, when you're washing them initially, and you put them in, I do them in my sink. You need to keep them compacted and together, because if you pick them up like this, they're going to stretch to the floor. So you have to be very, very careful. So we love merino. We have merino blends here in the shop. It's a lovely, lovely yarn to knit with. I wanted to show you a new sample that we have in the store. And this is a sweater from Kate Davies, whose designs I love. And this is called Horology, Horology. And we did this one in the Isayer silk mohair and hedgehog fibers fingering. So we held the two together, and it has these beautiful cables on the front, and then it cabled down the sleeve and cables in the back. So I think it's just a gorgeous, gorgeous design. I love cardigans now more than ever, particularly those of us who get hot, although I don't so much these days, but frequently women at a certain age get hot flashes, and it's nice to have on a cardigan that you can just whip off and take off. Now the cables are done in, how do I want to say it? It's a 3-stitch cable in a ribbing, sort of. And you can see on the back. And holding these two yarns together just makes this soft, wonderful, warm sweater. So I love it, and I think this could be in my future. A lot of people have already decided they want to make it. So the little buttonholes are actually knit on the button band, and they're right on the edge with a, looks like an I-cord, I think. Since I didn't make this, I don't know for sure, but I think that's what it is. So anyway, I recommend that as maybe your new pattern for the year. So I put together some fun combinations for it. So this is La Bien Amie, and this is called Ishigo, this, which has pink in it. And then I chose to put with it the Moondrake Surrey Cloud lace in this pink candy. Now, if you're a pink lover, I think this is for you. It's just gorgeous together. Then I took, this is what we made it, the sample in, is hedgehog. This is called Silent. So I took this very plain, because I wanted a plain sweater that would just kind of go with everything. And then I put with it the Isayer silk mohair in the colorway Powder. And it just picks up, when you put these two together, it picks up the mohair quite a bit. So you can see, I think this is the colorway I used. Well, if it's not, there's another one that's very similar, but this would go beautifully. Another choice that I found that I thought was kind of fun, this is called Hedgehog Fibers Hedgehog Sock Matchstick. And I paired it with the Isayer silk mohair Sage. So I think this would be a nice, it'll mute these designs of this coloring in here a little bit, and then you'll see that beautiful halo from the mohair. And then we have another mohair in the house that we just got, and this is the Malabrigo mohair. This colorway is called Under the Sea, and I paired it with Malabrigo Machita, and this colorway is called Lego. So I thought these are very pretty together, and I love this mohair, so beautiful. And this is just a dream. Went to knit this Machita with a mohair. It comes out so soft. And lastly, and we have tons of other options in the shop, but this is one I picked that I kind of liked. This is Madeline Tosh sock, and this is called Leaf Fall. It's kind of light taupey colored with some reds in it and blues, and I chose the Malabrigo mohair in something called Whole Grain, and I really like that one a lot. So those are some choices. I wanted to mention one thing that came up. So that's the sweater called Horology. You can get it on Ravelry. And look at Kate Davies' designs. They're just spectacular, some of them. Most of them, all of them. They're well written, and she has a great sense of design and color. So I would look her up and look at her patterns. I wanted to mention one other thing. This comes up over and over and over again in the shop. People making garments that don't fit, or making something. We had, and I don't want to call out a particular person, but we had somebody who had done not measured, and part of the garment she was making was way too big. What you need to do when you're making a hat, if you're making a sweater, mittens, anything that needs to fit, you must try it on. It's just, I can't say that enough, and you must measure. If you are making a sweater and the sleeve measurement, and I say this over and over and over again, the sleeve measurement in the pattern is not the same measurement that you would use for yourself. Not all bodies, look at people around you, not all our bodies are the same. And you may be a medium, and the person next to you may be a medium, but her arm length may be an inch or two longer than yours. There are no standard measurements for human beings. So, you know, I just can't say that enough. And you know how people are short-waisted or long-waisted. And people will look at patterns and say, well, that looks too short, I'm not going to make that. Well, you just make it longer. If it has cables or some pattern in it, we can help you to add inches to that. We know how to do that kind of thing. So you can come in and ask us. But for heaven's sakes, do not ever make a whole sweater without measuring yourself. Look at the schematic. There should be, and I don't recommend patterns that don't have schematics. That's the drawing of the actual garment. They have measurements on there. And you can look and see if the pattern tells you to knit 35 rows, at least you can see, if you look on the schematic, how long 35 rows are. Or you can look at your gauge swatch, which hopefully you did, and you know you can measure what 35 rows could. All the gauged measurements on patterns have the stitches per inch going across, obviously, excuse me, and it has rows. And the rows are important when you have patterns, so it's good that you see what your row gauge is as well as your stitch gauge. So please carry a tape measure with you. Have a tape measure all the time, which also is a reminder that you should have your little notions bag with all the things that you need, your little scissors, your gauge measurement, your like a crochet hook, your scissors, all those little things that you need when you're and your tape measure when you are knitting. So that little bag should go with you wherever your projects are. So don't forget to do that. And for heaven's sakes, if you are in doubt about about the measurements, come in and we can help you. But don't knit a whole sweater or a whole hat and find out that it doesn't fit. It's not fun to have to take things out. We do it all the time for whatever reason. I was knitting if any of you remember that Rasta cowl that I was doing, that I showed last week. I got it there were two colors, I put them together, and the second color was just too awful. It was too bright, didn't work. So I just took it out and started with a new color. Didn't take me long to catch up. So don't fret about having to take something out. But please don't finish a sweater that isn't going to fit you. That's just no fun. It's a negative experience. You'd be so sad at the end of it that it doesn't fit you. So it behooves you to measure. Come in here, we'll help you measure. We want you to be successful, and we want you to make garments that fit and look great on you. So that's my little advice for today. I'm sure I'll have some other bugaboo that comes up next week, and I'll tell you about something else I think you should or shouldn't do. And I hope you take this all with a grain of salt. So Happy New Year. Make some good resolutions, and it doesn't matter if you don't stick to them. It's just good to think about changes you can make in your life and things that make you happy. So I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.